Hello, boys and girls. Hopefully, everyone's having a beautiful day. I've just recently won the Chicago Open this past May of 2026. And before you ask, no, I did not win the Open section. That would be insane. However, I did win the under 1500 section with 6 wins and 1 draw. So, today I wanted to go over everything that I did leading up to the tournament that allowed me to win. And the things I'm going to be speaking about today are not things that just apply to players rated lower than myself, but they can be applied to any chess player who is willing to
level up.
There are 5 things that I'm going to cover today, which is diet, exercise, my studying and training routine, my mentality, and my faith. And before we start, I always like to stay as humble as possible, so this is not me saying that I'm better than anyone. I just wanted to come on here and share with you guys what I did leading up to the tournament that allowed me to win. So without further ado, let's get into it. First, we have diet and nutrition. I believe that diet is probably one of the most overlooked disciplines of today, especially with the modern food system, but diet can also be one of the most powerful. I've done a ton of research on diet and nutrition over the past year, and it's like taking I'm not sure if it was like the red or the blue pill from the Matrix, where once Neo takes it, he like sees the truth and then he can never go back. It's kind of like this. Once I got on the diet, it's hard to go back to a garbage diet because you realize how bad you feel. And again, this is not me recommending anything. You can do your own research and see what will work for you, but I'm just telling you what I did. This brain health maxing diet, if you will, consists of pretty much just 3 things, which is lean meat, produce, and healthy carbs. So for produce, I eat a lot of blueberries. Blueberries are the healthiest fruit for your brain. But other fruits I eat are like apples, bananas, kiwis, literally whatever you want. I just know that blueberries are the healthiest for your brain because they have a lot of antioxidants. In terms of carbohydrates, I just like to eat sweet potatoes and rice basically. For me, that's what works best. And what I try to avoid is just the highly processed carbs. When you eat the highly processed carbs, you'll get a lot of like dopamine spikes just because of how they're made. And then you'll just end up feeling worse than before and you'll have these huge energy crashes, which is just not what you need when you're playing long games of chess. And I'm also not saying that I eat perfectly like 100% of the time. It's probably around like 90%, but it's still better than not doing anything at all. And you actually don't realize how bad you feel until you switch to a diet like this for like 2 weeks and then you go back to eating a bunch of garbage and then you'll see your energy just instantly crash and you'll feel horrible, I promise you. So leading up to the tournament, I like to eat a diet like this just so I have stable energy and I'm in a good headspace. And I like dessert too, so I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, but what about dessert? What I do now is just I eat dark chocolate, which is actually really good for your brain as well, and then just fruit. Like I'm just turning fruit into dessert basically. And then the last diet tip I have is actually not eating at all. So I usually don't eat until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And this is just called intermittent fasting. And what this does is just gives your body the chance to break down any garbage that's in there. And this will just clear your brain fog. However, in the morning of the Chicago Open, like before I had games, I would eat like 2 eggs and some fruit just so I knew that my body had some energy in it. But yeah, this is essentially everything that I eat leading up to the tournament, and I found success in it. But like I said, do your own research and testing and see what works for you. So next is exercise. I'll keep this very quick. I just aim to do 3 days a week of intense cardio, so where like I'm sweating and stuff, and then I also weight train, but I wouldn't say weight training is as nearly as important as just doing some cardio. Cardio's been proven by many studies to be insanely beneficial for your brain health and mental clarity, so that is what I would recommend. And if you think 3 days is too much, at least just one day where you're sweating outside, huffing and puffing. And no, pickleball does not count as cardio. A lot of chess players look like they haven't done a single push-up in their entire lives, so anything is better than nothing. Now, the section I'm sure most of you guys have been waiting for, which would be my studying and training regimen, or whatever you want to call it. So there are 2 books that I've been reading leading up to the tournament. The first one is this calculation book. Hopefully you guys can see this, by Jacob Agard. And before I bought it, I looked up like reviews of it online, and yeah, it's not easy at all. It's just a book full of puzzles basically, and like a few sections, like instructional sections. But like after each puzzle, it'll give the explanation of the solution, of course. But if the title was not clear to you, this book definitely helped with my calculation. I've always been pretty good with strict calculation, but this book also helped me with a few more things, which would be that it narrowed my focus. So just trying to find the top 1 or 2 moves in the position, and then just sort of ruling out everything else. And then it also helped with my visualization, so seeing the board clearly even though I'm looking like 5 or 6 moves ahead. So that's the first book. And the second book is an endgame book by Jeremy Silman. This is the book. It's Silman's complete endgame course. I have not read all of this yet. I have not read all of the last book yet either, but I've gotten through probably 75% of this. And before I read this book, I was pretty clueless on endgames, which I'm sure 80% of chess players are kind of clueless on endgames. But this tournament, the Chicago Open, I was super comfortable with every endgame I was going into and was able to just squeeze out wins even when it didn't look like I could win. Like a million times I would get offered a draw, but I don't know, I felt comfortable, so I would just play on and then eventually I would win. So I think having a good endgame knowledge base is definitely important. And then opposite of endgames would be my opening prep. And so what I do is just 1 opening for white and then 2 openings for black, 1 against e4 and 1 against d4. And this helped a lot for the tournament because I was just able to blitz out like the first 7 or 8 moves without really having to think, just because I knew they were the best moves, which saves a lot of time and energy. And it's not just important to know what the best moves are, but actually why they're the best moves. And also having a good feeling for like the type of middle games that you'll get from these openings. So after I did a decent amount of memorization, I would actually train the openings. So for this, and I just came up with this system on my own, I would open Lichess, play against the computer, but Lichess would allow you to set up a position, so I would literally just do the first like 1 or 2 moves, so I knew I was getting that opening, and then I would just play through the next 10 or 12, testing my memorization and just making sure I played the opening correctly. So for opening training, this is all I got, and this is what I did. That helped me though. But other than this, I would just play a lot of Blitz and Rapid on chess.com. I know people say that you shouldn't play a lot of Blitz leading up to a classical tournament, which I think is kind of true, but also there are situations in classical games where you'll get low on time, and having the skill to play fast when you're low on time and accurately is definitely a good skill to have. Like, I'm someone who plays slow in classical games. Like, I use pretty much all my time every single game. So at the end, I'm always like, my opponent will have like half an hour left and I'll have like less than a minute. So I'm like blitzing the last like 10, 20 moves. And I feel like I wouldn't be very good at doing that if I wasn't somewhat of a decent blitz player. But in general, yes, it's better to play longer games like Rapid leading up to the tournament, so you're training your deeper calculation, not just impulsively moving every 3 seconds. So next we have my mentality going into the tournament, and I think this is actually the most interesting one. So very briefly, my dad taught me chess when I was like 5 or 6 years old. I used to play in like the scholastic tournaments, and I would win a few. I was pretty good, but only around like 700 elo. So I was good for my age, I guess. And then I stopped playing for like over a decade, I think, and I just recently started picking it back up again over the past like 3 or 4 years. Yeah, 3 years ago was when I started playing again. And over the past 3 years, I've just been doing like three, maybe four tournaments a year, and I've not won a single one. And it was never because I wasn't good enough. I've always thought that I was good enough to win the tournaments, but I would get into the tournament and there would always be like some weird mental lapse. That wasn't like a lack of skill, it was just a lack of like a solid headspace or whatever. In the past tournaments that I've done, like the past 3 years, I've just been focused on winning the prize money and not actually just playing the best chess that I possibly could. So for this tournament, I just decided no matter what situation I'm in, if I'm in a winning position or losing position, I will always just play the best move that I possibly can. And if my opponent outplays me and beats me, then it is what it is. But this mindset allowed me to be less nervous just because I was accepting of the fact that if someone was able to beat me, then so be it. And I'm gonna be honest, I wrote not too focused on the money. I mean, obviously the money's plays a huge role and it's great, obviously, but I did not want that to be the sole focus for why I was playing. So another thing that helped me win was just always playing for the win and never settling for draws, even if the position was a dead draw. Like I don't think in my life I've ever offered someone a draw. Even going into the last round, I had 6 wins, and all I needed was a draw to secure first place, like solo first place, because the people behind me only had 5 points, and I had 6. So a draw would just secure me first. But even still, I did not offer a draw, and I was playing for that 7 out of 7. Like all the time when I'm at these tournaments, I'll look around and people are just offering draws when they still have like 2 knights and a rook on the board and like a bunch of pawns just because the material is even. And honestly, if your opponent is offering you a draw in a situation like that, it just means that they're scared and nervous and don't feel comfortable in the situation. So I would just use that to your own advantage and realize that they're not comfortable and that you could probably, if you play the rest of the game well, you'll probably win. And especially at this level, like no one's a grandmaster. Like everyone's human. They're gonna make mistakes eventually. So if they're offering a draw, that already shows you that they're nervous and that you could probably take advantage. Like honestly, I would rather always play to win and go all out and lose than just play passively and accept a draw. But that's just me. I know people view the game differently, so it's whatever. And going off of that, my play style is pretty aggressive, so like I said, I always just play to win. And in my opinion, people hate defending. Like I would rather attack than defend, so I might as well just play aggressively and make my opponent defend. And that's usually when they'll make mistakes, and I would rather be the one putting the pressure on than the one having the pressure be put on me. And when you're the one attacking, it'll give you confidence too, and it'll shake up your opponent and make them uncomfortable, which is what you want. But everyone has a different play style, so I'm not telling anyone to play a certain way. This is just what works for me. So, last but certainly not least is my faith. This past year is the closest to God I've ever been in my entire life. And again, I'm not pushing anything on anyone, I'm just telling you what works for me. But Jesus' teachings are called teachings because there's something to learn from them. So here's one verse that I like that I believe applies to this situation. So here's Mark 24. Jesus says, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours." With this verse in mind, I genuinely believe that I had won the tournament already before it actually happened. So, like, when I won, it just wasn't really a surprise because I had already decided that I won before it happened. And obviously, before you guys get ahead of yourselves, this only works within, like, my skill limitation. Like, I'm not gonna show up at Norway Chess and beat everyone there. But the reason I share this with you is because, like I said, the past 3 years, I always thought I was good enough, but I was having some weird psychological lapses during the game, and I would just, I don't know, throw games when I had completely winning positions, or I was just too focused on the money. So I just tweaked my mental framework a little and opened myself up to receiving the win, and I guess it just played out on its own. So, this is everything that I did leading up to the Chicago Open that allowed me to win. So, hopefully, there are a few bits and pieces that you can take from this video and apply to your own chess career. And, like I've been saying, do your own research, do your own testing, see what works for you. I'm simply just telling you guys what worked for me. But personally, I would like all of you guys to become the best chess players that you guys can possibly be. So if you guys have any questions or comments or concerns about any of this stuff, let me know in the comments and I will get back to as many as I can. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys learned something, and peace out.